Welcome to another episode of WTF Cinema.
Hey everybody, welcome back to WTF Cinema. We're going to spend the next couple episodes looking at some Hollywood blockbusters because it's so easy to pick on the obscure little films, and while I enjoy the weird, the odd, and the obscure, let's face it, Hollywood's got some stuff coming its way too. So, let's start off with a movie that has been universally panned by scientists for the horrible, horrible science in it, The Core. We open in the psychedelic 60s. Just kidding. It's Green World Day in Boston, Massachusetts. Oh, I remember the Green World days when I was a kid. My father would get the Green World Day tree out of the attic. We'd have Green World Day cake and exchange Green World Day presents. Truly a magical time. Some dink in a suit notices that his watch stops shortly before he suffers from a heart attack and dies. Around that time, the traffic outside goes insane! They don't actually show us, though. I mean, we hear cars honking and cars crashing and children screaming, but we don't actually see anything until we pan out and see the already wrecked cars. So apparently this Hollywood blockbuster just did not have the budget to put in car crashes. So let me give you some car crashes just to help out your imagination. Also, this entire opening sequence, there's a really loud clock ticking sound that comes out of the left side of the screen. It's supposed to give us this sense of urgency, this sense of, oh man, time is moving forward. What it really gives me is a sense of, I need more Excedrin. We see Aaron Eckhart, a scientist, discussing sound waves and geology before some men in black come in and take him away.
Jeff, excuse my partner, he's new and
No, because that might actually be entertaining. So Aaron Eckhart and a colleague are shown into a large warehouse filled with dead bodies. Some official government general comes in and tells them all 32 of these people just spontaneously dropped dead within a 10-mile radius. And Aaron Eckhart, being a geologist, immediately knows that it's because they all had pacemakers and there was some kind of EMP burst. A geologist. Either he's the smartest man alive, or he has access to the script. Meanwhile in London, birds start crashing into stuff. Let me guess, we're dealing with an electromagnetic field issue. But it's not just birds. A space shuttle also has its navigational system go wonky, and it's gonna crash into downtown LA. Luckily, on board is the youngest, smartest female astronaut ever in history, and at the last minute, she's able to save them by having them land in a canal. Yeah, Hollywood makes sure that every single movie that comes out has to have at least one attractive female in it for us to stare at. It's a rule in Hollywood. Doesn't matter what the movie's about. There's gotta be one hot chick. She's our token hot chick. You're welcome. This pretty nifty action sequence here is undermined a little bit by the fact that in the background of the soundtrack, it sounds like some kid is just pounding away on his Casio. While all this has been going on, Aaron Eckhart's been studying all these events and doing some research, and he approached a rock star-like scientist who works for the government and says, hey, something bad's going down. This leads to the Men in Black coming to escort him into a top-secret government meeting again. Now, Aaron's had a bit to drink in this scene. He's in a crowded bar, sitting there with a buddy, and he asks the guys in black, so what happens if I don't go with you? At which point, they say, we don't have senses of humor, and we have guns. The Secret Service just threatened to shoot a scientist if he did not go with them, in front of witnesses, one of whom was sitting at the table. Again, it's neat, the cloak and dagger thing, but I don't think this happens in real life. A, if you shot him and he died, you couldn't use him. B, if you shot him to wound, he might not want to work with you. C, you just basically abducted him at gunpoint in front of a bar full of witnesses. Is that how our government works? Really? Because he's not a terrorist. He's a science teacher. So Aaron Eckhart has to explain to all of these top government officials how the Earth is constructed. He basically cuts a peach in half and walks them through the diagram that we've all seen since like middle school, with the crust and the mantle and the outer core and the inner core. We know this image. All of you know it. I'm not even going to pull it up for you. He has to explain it to them step by step, though. So it's good to know that the top military officials can get away with knowing less than a 9th grade science student. Anyway, he tells them that all of these problems, and many more to come, are due to the fact that the Earth's core has stopped rotating. Wait, what? The Earth's still rotating, because we still have day and night. That would have gotten noticed pretty quick. So, the crust is rotating, the mantle is rotating, the outer core is rotating, but the inner core has stopped. It's just still. Despite the fact that it's a highly charged liquid in a giant spinning container, it is somehow sitting still. If it's actually sitting still, doesn't it have to be spinning the other way in order to not be moving at all? I'm not a scientist, but I'm really sure that doesn't work. Aaron Eckhart tells us that there's going to be some random EMP bursts over the next several months, and then, after a year, microwaves from the sun are going to start penetrating our atmosphere and cooking us alive, and we're all going to die a horrible fiery death. Thankfully, he demonstrates this by setting fire to a small piece of fruit. Because honestly, if a scientist came in and told me that we were all going to die horribly, I wouldn't really understand him unless he did some kind of over-the-top visual aid, preferably involving fire and fruit. So our heroes have to find a way to drill down to the center of the Earth. Luckily, there's a scientist living in the middle of a desert who's got a new technology that'll let us do it.
If you've ever seen ultrasonic waves break up a kidney stone on the Discovery Channel, it's the same deal here.
Okay, that was obviously dubbed over as his mouth never moved, but that's fine, you know, sometimes you do some dubbing. But he didn't raise his voice at all, and he was talking to characters off-screen. I mean, they were far enough away that you couldn't see them, and at no point did he feel he needed to raise his voice for them to be able to hear him. This was dubbed in at the very last second, right before it hit theaters, wasn't it? Okay, so this guy, who we're told has no money whatsoever, has figured out a brand new way to drill through solid rock using technology nobody's heard of before. And he hasn't made millions selling this to mining companies. Why? Not that drilling straight down is going to help you anyway. You're going to have to deal with a lot of pressure and heat. An absurd amount, beyond anything mankind has ever dreamed of dealing with. Luckily, this scientist has also completed an indestructible alloy that he can build a ship out of. Completely indestructible in every way. This is Dr. Deus Ex Machina. He explains to everybody that he created this indestructible material. But its real name is like 37 syllables long, and so he goes, just call it unobtainium. 3 points. 1, if you created it, you can name it anything you want. It didn't have to be 37 syllables long. You could just call it the unobtainium, if that's really what you wanted to call it. 2, if it's indestructible, how are you supposed to cut it and mold it to create a ship out of it? Because if you can cut it, then won't the heat and pressure affect it too? 3, unobtainium? Really? That's the name we're going with? I'm not going to accuse it of stealing it from Avatar. Unobtainium's actually been around longer than that. Unobtainium is a phrase used by scientists for thought experiments. They use it the same way you use X in algebra. It's to signify an unknown variable. You know, so what if I built a spaceship out of unobtainium? That sort of thing. It's really sad that Hollywood writers can't bother to actually name new minerals and new materials. Instead, they just continue grabbing the same thought experiment name. Also, a bonus fourth point for you. This man has created 2 technologies that would completely revolutionize the way we all live. And he doesn't have any money. He's created an indestructible material that he has a way to shape into stuff, and a way to drill through solid rock that is really effective. And he's poor. The government hires Dr. Deus Ex Machina to build a craft to try pilot to the center of the Earth. One more question beyond his poorness. He lives in this warehouse in the middle of the desert. Alone. Giant space. How does he pay? Who does he pay rent to? How does he get electricity out there? What does he eat? How does the food come in? Sure, it's neat to have the scientist living in the middle of the desert, but there's no infrastructure around him, and he makes it very clear that he doesn't really have any money. If you were going to live cut off from everything, it would cost quite a bit of money to survive. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, an FBI team raids the home of a hacker. It's made very clear to us very early on, he's a super hacker. He's the best of the best. And they basically try to recruit him onto the team to do data management so people in the world don't find out what's going on and that their lives are in danger. Because he's the best hacker in the world, you see, and only the best can pull off something like this. So the government knew where the greatest hacker in the world lived. Luckily it was in America. Good for us. They knew where he was. And at no point did they ever try to recruit him to say, I don't know, hack nuclear power stations in North Korea. I don't know. The single greatest hacker in the world, you didn't want to try and get him on our team and point him at an enemy or something? Instead, you were content to just let him lay around until the world was in danger and then you go and recruit him at gunpoint? Really? Again, it's one of those really cool things, but if he's the best in the world and you know it ahead of time, don't you want him? To show us how awesome he is, he manages to hack Aaron Eckhart's cell phone in about 3 seconds. Tosses it back to him and says, there, now you've got free long distance on that phone for the rest of your life. Don't all cell phones have free long distance? Meanwhile, our astronaut, remember her? She's awaiting her tribunal. It's been made clear to us that she's probably going to lose her job, her and her entire crew, because they crashed a space shuttle. So she's probably going to lose her job. She's sitting out there waiting to be called in, chewing some gum. Why do I care that she's chewing gum? Because 2 seconds later, when she's called in, she very clearly panics because she doesn't know what to do with her gum. You're sitting out there waiting for the most important meeting of your career. So you pop a piece of gum and have no exit strategy in sight. Really? You know what? I don't want her flying space shuttles. She's too stupid. Because of her amazing navigational skills, she and her main captain, who actually does the flying, are both assigned to our super team. I'm sure she's got great navigational skills, but you're talking about drilling to the center of the Earth, something that's never been done by anybody. And wouldn't navigating that be completely, and in every single way, different than navigating in space or in the air where you have points of reference? Honestly, I think I'm about as qualified to navigate through solid rock as any astronaut would be, because I don't see there being any crossover. Finally, our characters break down and explain to us the plan, even though by now we've mostly figured it out. They're going to drill into the core of the Earth, they're going to set off a series of nuclear bombs, and that's going to start the Earth spinning again, or the core spinning again, because the Earth's still spinning. I'm a little unsure about how you use an explosion to cause centrifugal force, but fine. Let's leave that for a moment. The characters make it very clear that there's a very small margin of error for how much these nukes, the payload of the nukes needs to be, where they need to be set. Very small margin of error. But since we don't really 100% know the composition of the Earth's core, it's hard to know what the margin of error would be. They pretty much admit that we have a small chance of success. We don't know where that chance is. We've got no prayer whatsoever. Thank God we don't have a plan B.
Thank you for watching WTF Cinema. Until next time, what the f***, man?